UFC Fight Night, Kai France versus Amir Albazi. Welcome to another UFC prediction and analysis video presented by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zan, I go by Harris, as usual, fight by fight breakdowns and predictions. From that betting perspective specifically, we want to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights to avoid, which underdog has the best shot at winning, and some parlay action toward the end of the video as well. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel here at Boxing MMA Picks. We'd greatly appreciate that. Please also hit the thumbs up on this video, and most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. For this UFC Fight Night, it will take place at the UFC Apex. 13 fights overall. We have 7 of them on the prelims. We have 6 of them on the main card. Let's get started with fight number 1 of our prelims. We're looking at Philipe Lins versus Maxim Grishin. Light heavyweight fight here. Philipe Lins, 2-fight winning streak. He beat OSP, Ovince St. Preux, back in February. Looking pretty solid in his return to light heavyweight. He's introduced as a striker, pretty solid stand-up, good long jab. He can put good punching combinations together. Look for the fakes and feints. Look for him to be especially explosive as he sets up his shot. Look for him to control center of the octagon as well. Look for him to be that fighter closing distance. 2 fights ago, he showed that he is willing to sort of take that takedown approach as well, as we see the takedown numbers there at almost 2 per fight. Maxim Grishin, on the other hand, beat William Knight. That was over a year ago, about 16 months ago. He's also introduced as a striker, very patient striker at that, sometimes too patient. Doesn't really have the highest work rate, but the striking is pretty clean. He fights at range. He'll chip away. He'll keep the fight on the feet. He has a decent jab, decent movement, good IQ, especially with his striking. And my only sort of gripe with him is that it's kind of one shot at a time. I do think most of this fight occurs on the feet. I do believe that Philipe Lins is the more dangerous striker of the two. He also adds that grappling layer, that takedown advantage that he should have in this fight as well. But I believe that Grishin's takedown defense should be good enough to stop most of those attempts from Philipe Lins, if they are even to come. Because again, Philipe Lins is a striker. And again, I do believe that most of this fight occurs on the feet. Now, in terms of the striking, I think that Philipe Lins, again, should be more dangerous, especially early in the fight. But I believe Maxim Grishin's striking is better overall. I think it's cleaner. I think his footwork is better. And I think that's going to lead to him winning the striking exchanges as the fight carries on. Will Maxim Grishin do enough to impress the judges? That's where I can see a potential problem for him, where he may technically win a round, but Lins may be a little bit more exciting. But I think that that'll only be an issue in round 1. I think as the fight goes on, round 2, round 3, Grishin's better striking should take over, and he should be able to score rounds in his favor that way. Close fight to start us off, but I am going to go with Maxim Grishin on this one.
Yeah, this is one of those close fights where you really don't want to bet because both guys can win this fight. You can't really trust both guys as well. Based off the body of work in the UFC, you got to give Max Grishin the edge, right? He's beaten the better guys. He had a really close, debatable fight with Dustin Jacoby. Philipe Lins really didn't beat good guys, right? Like he beat let me pull this up here. He didn't really get wins off like his opposition that he's winning. OSP, who was a dinosaur at that point. Marcin Prachnio, he got that win, but Marcin Prachnio is pretty low level as well. When you look at Maxim Grishin, though, he at least has a competitive fight versus Dustin Jacoby, who people are high on. And a lot of people thought he won that fight. He beat William Knight. He beat Antigolov. Tabora was able to use the takedowns in that fight. I think for Philipe Lins, he's going to need to get the takedowns going or get an early knockout because, as we know, as the fight goes on, Lins does not have the best cardio. And I think that's where Maxine's going to kind of take advantage. I think Maxine has better cardio. I think he's going to be the stronger guy physically. I think he should be able to keep it on the feet. And as the fight goes on, I just see Maxim getting more points, winning those rounds. But again, this is close because Philipe Lins has really fast hands for a light heavyweight. He has really fast hands, boxing hands. He can catch anyone, and he can knock out Grishin if he catches him correctly. I think if Grishin avoids that power, gets us into the second round, the fight should be a lot easier for him. So I'm going to go with Maxime Grishin, but I do think this is a 50-50 type of fight.
Second fight of the prelims, Damon Blackshear versus Luan Lacerda. Blackshear lost to Farid Basharat back in March. Stand-up is pretty decent. He's patient, doesn't really rush things. We look at his significant strikes landed per minute, sort of proving that message. Not too active, but a very kick-heavy approach. He commits to that forward pressure. I would say his strength is in his grappling. 8 of his 12 wins are via submission. He can land takedowns. Small sample size, just 1 takedown per fight with the UFC stats. Takedown defense is not great. He is active off of his back though. He looks for submissions if he is taken down. But again, not the highest striking rate and still a little bit more to prove in terms of getting the fight to the ground. Luan Lacerda lost to Cody Stamann in his January debut. Many had Lacerda winning that fight. Legitimate grappler in his own right, 10 of his 12 wins via submission. Patient, rangy on the feet, not the most active striker, but he can strike. Pretty solid jab, pretty decent hands in general. Muay Thai style, so expect a lot of explosive kicks from him. Wants to control center, wants to walk you down. So it's going to be interesting to see both fighters committing to that forward pressure. Who is going to get the better of who? In terms of Lacerda, he will shoot for those takedowns. You know, I wouldn't really call him the strongest wrestler, but, you know, he is in some ways also one of those get the fight to the ground by any means necessary type of fighters with high level grappling. I think we learned a lot about Luan Lacerda in his debut. Very competitive fight again. Cody Stamann, you know, one of those fighters that are sort of on the brink of having a number next to their name. Many had Lacerda winning that fight, as I mentioned, right? Blackshear, very solid opponent, though, for anyone. I think there's some similarities between these two fighters. Their striking approach, to me, is pretty similar. Their ability to land takedowns, their preference to commit to the forward pressure, as I mentioned, but a few differences. I feel like Blackshear will slow down as the fight progresses. I feel like Lacerda's striking is more controlled, and he's going to get the better of the striking exchanges. I also feel like Lacerda can land takedowns if things get sticky on the feet for him, especially because, again, Blackshear does not have the best takedown defense. Close fight by way of skill set, by way of similarities, but Lacerda, to me, if he wins all 3 rounds unanimously, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Maybe not the most confident pick per se, because it is a competitive fight. This is only the second time we're seeing Lacerda in the UFC. But I think potentially a good value pick here to go with Luan Lacerda being slightly better everywhere and just having the more intentional game plan to score rounds in his favor, especially as the fight goes on. So I'm looking at Luan Lacerda to get this one done.
Yeah, this is another fight that you got to be careful with. Luan Lacerda looks pretty decent in this fight against Cody Stamann. He has the jiu-jitsu. He's shown some wrestling in that 3rd round. And his striking is it's okay. It's nothing great, but he does throw a lot of kicks. Now, I would like it if he threw these kicks with more intent, more power, but he doesn't really throw like hard shots. It's not like he's really trying to end the fight with one shot. He might surprise us Saturday, right? This might be something he might want to show us come this weekend. When I look at Blackshear, I see a guy that's going to be the bigger guy. When it comes to grappling, I think Blackshear could be the better wrestler in this fight. He could be the guy that dictates if this goes on the ground or not. But I think both guys have the ability to take this to the mat if they time the perfect takedown. On the feet, Blackshear is not the greatest striker. However, what I do like about him is he is actually throwing his shots with some zip, right? He's throwing some power shots. He's throwing some good kicks when he's ready. But he's trying to hurt you with these shots. If they land, it can definitely be an issue. And Lacerda, to me, does not have the best striking defense. I'm not sold on his striking yet. I like Blackshear because I know that he's been training that striking a bit more. It looks like it. Lacerda might be more well-rounded in the striking with the kicks and the punching, but I just don't like the zip behind it. I don't see any power behind these shots. And I think in this fight, Blackshear could implement some wrestling, get the first 2 rounds. And on the feet, I wouldn't be surprised. Blackshear is not the greatest striker, but Lacerda doesn't have the best defense. So I wouldn't be surprised if Blackshear throws one of his hard shots and does hurt him. Right? I think this is a fight that Blackshear could win. He came into the UFC. They just gave him pure hard fights. When he came in here, who did he? His last couple of fights, who were they with? I just remember this guy. They gave him pure hard. They gave him Farid Basharat, Yusuf Zalal. Those are his first 2 fights in the UFC. So they're not giving this guy any favors coming in. It's one of the hardest runs. Literally, your first 2 fights are 2 prospects. One guy that they think could be a top 5 fighter in the future. And then now you're giving them Luan Lacerda. So this is a big step down from the guys they were giving him. I think this is a fight he could win. So I'm going to go with the underdog here. Will I bet it? No, but I think this is a spot that the underdog could win here. So I'm going to go with Damon Blackshear.
Third fight, let's talk Elise Reed versus Jinh Frey. Elise Reed lost to Loma Lookboonmee back in February. She's been a bit inconsistent in her time in the UFC. She likes to keep the fight on the feet. She's patient, solid IQ, pretty light on her feet. She can be tricky. Good kicks. She can catch her opponents off guard. Well-timed, right straight, good timing in general. She will blitz in on her opponents, throw flurries, throw combinations. Otherwise, expect her to use her lateral movement to fight at distance. Always got to highlight the red flags of a fighter with her. Horrible takedown defense, just 47%. May not matter in this fight, but always something to note. Jinh Frey, 2-fight losing streak. She lost to Polyana Viana back in November. Decent skill set on paper. One of those fighters that no glaring weakness. She is a decent striker. The jabs there, the calf kicks are there. Pretty technical with her striking. She can play that clinch game. She has shown some takedown ability with some top control as well. Her takedown defense, pretty good. In 6 UFC fights, she's only given up 3 takedowns, 88% on paper. Decent poise, decent control. She can fight from center of the octagon pretty effectively. Again, just a composed veteran. I mean, she's 38 years old, so she's kind of been through her time in MMA. You think about how Jinh Frey, speaking of going through your time in MMA, you think about how she was finished in her last fight. That's concerning to me because, of course, the chin does go at some point. She's 38 years old now at this point, and it might be a sign that her chin is just done at this level, right? That said, I don't really feel like Elise Reed is a UFC level fighter, so that makes this one really hard to predict. I'm going to side with Elise Reed because there is a toughness that she has that I think is going to work well for her, especially if Jinh Frey's chin is gone. I mean, I do think Reed has that ability from a timing perspective to kind of catch you off guard, catch her in with one of those blitzes, catch her in with one of those well-timed right straight punches. I think those things can happen. And the way that Frey was finished in her last fight, that's a bit concerning if you're on the betting side of Frey. Frey does have the ability to get it to the mat, but it's not an active part of her game. So I do think that most of this fight occurs on the feet. I think Elise Reed's distance control, her blitzing, as well as that toughness that she has, I think these are 3 factors that can work well for her throughout the fight. Can't be confident at all in this one. I would completely avoid betting it, but I am going to pick Elise Reed to get the job done.
Yeah, Jinh Frey to me is definitely the better MMA fighter. More well-rounded than Elise Reed. Her fight against Vanessa Demopoulos, she should have won that fight. Judges definitely ripped her off, but making that fight close with Demopoulos is not a good look, man. Demopoulos is not that good at all. If she can beat you, then it kind of indicates you're not on the UFC level. But I actually do think Jinh Frey won that fight, but she should have won by a wider margin. It shouldn't have been close where the judges was able to rip her off in that fight. In this fight, I like Harris. I think this is going to stay on the feet. On the feet, I think Elise Reed is the better striker. Some trends to look at in this fight, I just noticed is Elise Reed in the UFC since she came. She's been trading win losses, right? So she lost against, I'm sorry, she lost against Sajara Eubanks, and then she won against McKenna, lost against Hughes, won against Martinez, lost against Loma, and now she's fighting Jinh Frey. So it seems like based on trends, when she loses, right, she really takes it to heart, or she takes it, it motivates her because the next fight, if you look at her fight against McKenna and Martinez, a lot of people were against her in those fights, and she looked really, really good in those fights. The McKenna fight should have been a unanimous. That should not have been a split decision. But it clearly shows that when she takes a loss, she definitely goes back and tries to improve. Like, she's definitely working. Jinh Frey's on a 2-fight losing streak, and we look at her patterns here. She's never been on a 3-fight losing streak in her entire career. So she lost against Polyana Viana. She lost against Demopoulos, but she should have won. It's a tough fight, right? This fight can go either way, but I like Harris. I think it stays on the feet. I think the age is a big thing you got to look at. Frey is 38 years old. Reed is 30 years old, coming into her own. Anything can happen here in the women's MMA, but you got to go with the 30-year-old that has the better striking. Should be able to keep it on the feet enough. Even if she gets taken down, it should be the rest of the way on the feet, second, third round. And Elise Reed definitely has the cleaner boxing. She does have some pop as well, some zip in her punches at this division. So I'm gonna go with Elise Reed, but it is a tough fight because both these fighters, you can't really trust. They take losses, but I think Elise Reed's gonna rebound from her last fight.
Fight number 4, Jamie Mullarkey versus Muhammad Naimov. Jamie Mullarkey 2-fight winning streak. He beat Francisco Prado back in February. Decent jab, good head movement, good level changes, a lot of movement in general in his style. Very serviceable level of stand-up. His combinations look improved. His calf kick looks improved. His striking defense looks improved as well. Counter punching looks improved. Good power, can't ignore that. 10 of his 16 wins are via KO, TKO. And he has the wrestling, 2.5 or just over 2.5 takedowns per fight. He's eventually going to shoot for that takedown, or just sort of play the clinch game against the cage. And also, don't expect any cardio issues from him. Muhammad Naimov, UFC newcomer. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. He last competed back in May. This is a fighter who has fought on Dana White Contender Series back in 2020. He lost to Colin Anglin at that time. Colin Anglin now has lost 4 in a row since that win. 2 in the UFC, 2 outside the UFC. So that alone is going to make you sort of question right off the bat, what level is Naimov at to have lost to Colin Anglin at that time? What I've seen from Naimov, competent stand-up, look for the calf kicks, look for him to be explosive, solid top control. When he does take you down, doing enough to sort of maintain that control time, get the ground and pound going, staying out of danger in terms of submissions coming his way, and sort of finding the submission in his own right. But for this fight, I sort of have to go with Jamie Mullarkey. We see he's the big favorite here. Too many X factors, right? Less than a week's notice for Naimov. Mullarkey's original opponent was supposed to be Goran Kutateladze, who we learned had some visa issues. I believe his fight is being rescheduled. They're finding a new opponent for him. So, Naimov is coming in on less than a week's notice for this one, which is never a good sign if you're on that side of the betting. Almost all of Naimov's wins as well have been first-round finishes. His 2 decision wins were both split decision wins against tougher competition. So that's telling me either he can't really keep up at a higher level, or there may be some cardio issues and less chances to win rounds as the fight goes into deeper waters. I think Mullarkey can take him there, right? I think Mullarkey can take him to those deep waters. 72% takedown defense, not amazing, but enough competency in that department to fight off the takedowns, especially later on in the fight. I think as long as Mullarkey survives that first round, which I believe he will, he should be able to pull away in this fight. Better movement in the stand-up, proven cardio, strength of schedule comparatively, of course, potentially the wrestling of his own in the later rounds, and Naimov being on short notice. Again, just too many factors. This fight should be Mullarkey's to lose. Maybe want to be careful with this one though, because this could be one of those trap fights. But again, the way I'm seeing this, too many X factors. Mullarkey's fight to lose. He should get it done.
Yeah, this is honestly, man, I did a lot of research on this one. So the Mohammed Naimov guy, he is a Taekwondo guy. That's his style. He's Taekwondo, but he does have grappling. He does have the ability to submit fighters. I seen him jump on the back, lock the legs. I seen him submit guys. So he does have the ability to grapple, and he does have the ability to submit fighters. But as far as his go-to, he wants to keep this on the feet. Actually, this guy has won tournaments. I'm not sure exactly, but I was watching one of his fights, and the announcers were saying this is a world champion Taekwondo, whatever that is, right? Like, I don't even know where you watch those fights, right? But he's a world champion somewhere. And when you watch his fights, he does those spinning Taekwondo kicks and doesn't land often, but in his last fight, he did get a leg kick early in the fight, got a knockout. So I think he definitely has a chance to win this fight by like a Taekwondo spectacular finish. Because with Taekwondo, I honestly don't think it's an effective art, myself personally. However, I think that's a martial art that has a lot of home run capabilities, like just landing that perfect shot can just finish the fight. Like when it comes to Taekwondo and karate, I'm not high on it, but it really just takes one shot from those guys. And that's how I see this fight. I think Mullarkey, if he doesn't have his defense up, he can definitely get knocked out. But I think Naimov needs to get it done in that first round, because watching his fights, he definitely has cardio problems. Against Anglin, who as you indicated, got washed in the UFC 0-4. Anglin was able to Anglin got a 10-8 round on this guy on the Contender Series, one of those rounds. Anglin was able to take him down at will, not at will, but pretty much dominate with the wrestling. And one of those rounds, two judges gave a 10-8. I see Mullarkey as a cardio advantage, fighting better fighters. And another thing you got to look at, Naimov is a legit can crusher. He's a legit can crusher. And in his fights, he loses to anyone that has a decent record. He lost to a 4-0 guy, lost to a 7-1. He beat a guy named Satik Muduev at Tough Enough. But I don't think he won that fight. I watched that fight when I was studying this card. And I don't know how the judges, he was getting taken down easily. 2 rounds easily went to the other guy. So it was a split decision, but it was one of those fights that he did not look good in that fight. And the other guy, in my opinion, won that fight, got robbed. So in my opinion, he didn't win that fight. And the rest of the guys on his record that he's beating are guys that are 4-3, 5-6, 4-1, 2-1. So I think he's a can crusher. Mullarkey beat a can crusher his last time out. I can't go against Mullarkey this time. So I'm going to go with Mullarkey to get this done. As the fight goes on, I just think he's going to put on a pace and just be the better guy, and the better cardio should get it done here.
5th fight of our prelims, John Castañeda versus Muin Gafurov. John Castañeda, he lost to Daniel Santos back in October. Southpaw, some switch stance as well. Good stand-up, good in-and-out movement, good low kicks, tie kicks, decent boxing as well, decent counter-punching as well. He's going to keep a healthy distance from his opponents, fight pretty effectively from range. But he can use those fakes and feints and stance switches and sort of all that trickiness to be that fighter coming forward as needed. Overall, pretty clean style of stand-up, great cardio. He's going to go at the same pace the entire fight. You see he has some takedowns to his name as well. He is capable in that department, but I would say, sort of much more of a striker than anything else. Muin Gafurov, on the other hand, is the UFC newcomer. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. LFA champion. He's introduced as a combat sambo style fighter, 2-time combat sambo world champion. So we sort of know what comes with that style. Striking wise, he's okay, a bit basic, but he is explosive. He is dynamic. He has pretty decent power. 10 of his 18 wins via KO TKO, and he's going to sort of force his way in. He's going to want to close distance, use combinations, use big punches, and sort of look for the takedown right away from those situations. because he wants to get you on the mat. Again, combat sambo style. He wants to show his top control. His ground and pound is active enough to score points, but his approach is, sort of as much ground control time as possible, sort of spamming the takedown attempts as well. Gafurov, he has a tough style against anyone, not unbeatable by any means. I mean, we've seen him lose on Dana White Contender Series in 2021. And he may have trouble closing the distance in this fight. Again, Castañeda has good movement, and Gafurov a bit basic, a bit flat-footed in his style as well. Otherwise, I'm actually liking the newcomer here. I think the key stat for this fight, John Castañeda, 60% takedown defense. Gafurov stylistically likes to spam those takedowns. And I think he will be able to close distance. I think he will be able to land takedowns, and I think he will be able to do enough with top control to win the rounds in his favor. I think he'll be in Castañeda's face, make it a frustrating one stylistically for Castañeda, where Castañeda just can't really get going, right? Of course, I could be wrong. Castañeda could, be moving beautifully the entire fight, and Gafurov just struggling to get takedowns, and Castañeda sort of outstriking him for the entire fight. That would not surprise me. Castañeda has been here before, has the UFC experience, and taking on a newcomer. But I'm going to go with the newcomer. I think he'll be able to make it a frustrating fight for Castañeda, and I think, again, that key stat of 60% takedown defense is going to be very relevant and is going to allow Gafurov to land takedowns. So I'm going to go with the underdog. I'm going to go with the newcomer. Muin Gafurov is going to be my pick.
Okay. Yeah, this is a tough fight, man. Castañeda is going to be the cleaner guy boxing-wise. He's going to be able to use his footwork. And Castañeda actually has, I believe, studying his previous fights, he has, I think, a high school wrestling championship, I believe. But I know he has some type of wrestling background. He doesn't obviously use it in the UFC, but it could definitely come in handy in terms of stopping the takedowns against this guy, because his opponent's going to be looking for takedowns. Gafurov's going to be looking to get this to the mat. And on the feet, you got to give the advantage as far as the chin goes, because I think the chin's going to be a big thing in this fight. I think you got to give the advantage to Gafurov. He went 3 rounds with John Lineker, one of the most powerful guys in this division in the world. And Castañeda, however, has the technique, the strike advantage. But Castañeda doesn't have that durable chin that I believe Gafurov has. And first 2 rounds, I think Gafurov's going to be on his back, going to be tiring him out. I see the first round's going to Gafurov. He's going to have the cardio to do it. 3 rounds is going to be tough. I see him gas out on the Contender Series. But again, after that fight on the Contender Series, it looks like he went to the drawing board, improved his cardio. He showed that he improved a lot of things. He looks like a different fighter. I think in this fight, stylistically, this is a fight Gafurov should win, because on the feet, he went toe-to-toe with Lineker for 3 rounds. He has knockouts on his record, so he could win this fight. It's similar to that fight, Drew Dober versus what's that guy's, man? The guy I picked. Anyways, Drew Dober was the better striker, but the other guy had the ability to land those shots, and he did. And I picked him, and he won, and he knocked him out. I think this is a similar fight. Even though one guy's a better striker, his defensive mishaps, he can get hit with a big bomb. Gafurov throws heavy shots when he's in there. And if not, I think he's going to grind him out 2 rounds. If he gets him on the ground, he has really good top control. It's not like guys can get up really easily. I think Gafurov's been tested as well. So I'm going to go with Gafurov here to pull this off. He's one of my underdogs I like on this card, and I think he gets it done here.
Fight number 6, Andrei Arlovski versus Dontel Mays. Heavyweight fight, of course, heavyweight beware. Andrei Arlovski lost to Marcos Rogerio de Lima back in October. We know his MO at this point, patient in the stand-up, keeps distance pretty effectively. He's a solid MMA striker, solid MMA boxing. Combinations are decent. He can switch stance pretty effectively as well. Good IQ, 3-round cardio is not a problem. Always got to mention his age when he fights, 44 years old at this point. but still able to win at this level. Don'Tale Mayes, on the other hand, unanimous decision loss to Augusto Sakai back in February. 2 losses in a row now. Decent movement, fights from the outside. He's going to pepper in those kicks. Good long jab, good push kick. Has a long 81-inch reach, usually an advantage against his opponents, 4 inches in this fight to his advantage specifically. Pretty dynamic as a striker as well, with pretty decent movement. You got to highlight that Parisian fight that he had a few fights ago. He landed 6 takedowns, of course, looked like a completely different fighter in that fight specifically. Otherwise, just doesn't really have the strongest takedown game or approach to his game. I don't want to think too much about Don'Tale Mayes' height and reach advantages in this fight because those advantages were sort of the same as his last fight versus Augusto Sakai, and he just stylistically doesn't really use it to his advantage. I want to think Don'Tale Mayes pulls this out. I mean, how do you go for a 44-year-old versus someone who's potentially in their athletic prime at 31, right? Mayes is younger, has the reach advantage, the weight advantage as well, the height advantage. Coming off of consecutive losses, he may feel like he needs this win. Plus the way that he looked in his last win, where he was landing takedown after takedown. But I just can't get past how he's looking recently in his 2 losses. Against guys with any sense of takedown defense, he's doesn't show that he has the ability to land it. His striking is also not really keeping up against these guys. And I can see Arlovski sort of winning the striking exchanges throughout the fight, landing more, looking cleaner, stopping the takedowns, and Don'Tale Mayes just not really having an answer for it. So unfortunately, I got to go with the 44-year-old. I say unfortunately because how do you make a bet on that? So I definitely would avoid this from a betting perspective. But again, like I said, Andrei Arlovski getting up there in age, but still has the ability to win on this level. And I think Don'Tale Mayes is the type of opponent he can beat. So I'm going to go Andrei Arlovski to get the job done here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go too much into this one, man. Don'Tale Mayes, really, really super low level. Andrei Arlovski's almost 50, but he's beaten guys like this before, right? So I think this is a fight he can move around the ring. I can't trust Don'Tale Mayes. I wouldn't be surprised he wins. He should. He's 15, 13 years younger. He should win this fight. Big guy. He should be able to utilize his wrestling or even land a good shot. But I'm gonna go with Andrei Arlovski again with like Harris. I believe this is a fight he could win. Dance around the ring, uses movement, box. He's the better boxer, and I think he might be able to find a big shot, hurt Don'Tale. Don'Tale has no heart, so Arlovski might just need to land a big shot, hurt him, and then he might just cover up. Again, fight can go either way. Arlovski's 44, so you can't really put much faith in there. But versus Don'Tale, I got to go with Arlovski in this spot.
All right, let's go. Final fight of our prelims, Daniel Santos versus Johnny Munoz. This is a bantamweight fight that was supposed to happen last month, rescheduled due to a Santos injury. Santos beat John Castañeda back in October, Muay Thai kickboxer. He's a shoot the box product, so that's the Charles Oliveira camp. Likes to come forward, puts on a pressure, puts on a good pace as well. The striking technique, it looks pretty cleaned up, looks improved. Still a bit wild, but he does put his combinations together really well. High level grappling, unsurprisingly, not the strongest wrestler, unsurprisingly. Takedown defense isn't great, unsurprisingly, but really good with scrambling, really good at keeping himself safe, getting back up, and he can land takedowns of his own. Took a lot of big shots in his last fight, recovered really well, kept coming forward, still got the finish, got to respect the heart, the toughness, the competitiveness from him. Johnny Munoz, unanimous decision win over Ludwig Sholinian back in November, BJJ black belt. He's going to use a takedown and clinch approach. Good entries, good timing, good positional improvements, pretty decent grounded pound. In terms of his stand-up, he's patient. He can switch stance, regular jab usage, pretty diverse with his striking, decent movement as well, looks pretty comfortable on the feet. Just again, one of those fighters that doesn't really have any glaring weaknesses to their game. To me, I think John Castañeda was a tougher opponent for Daniel Santos than what I'm anticipating from Johnny Munoz. I think the striking will be at Santos's pace. I think if Munoz wants to play grappling, he's going to be entering into Santos's world. When I think about how the styles match up, I think Santos is in a good position here, especially if he performs the way that he did in his last fight. Munoz can be the more effective striker from distance. He can potentially pick Santos apart the way that he did against Ludwig Sholinian, but I don't anticipate that. Again, I anticipate this fight going at Daniel Santos's pace. And, Munoz's main strength, which is that grappling, I think Santos can potentially be better in that area. So I think Daniel Santos gets it done. I think he has some good momentum behind his name right now, and I think he gets another good performance, gets the job done.
Okay, yo, this is a rematch, not a rematch, but a reset match. I have the same pick. I like Daniel Santos. I think Daniel Santos is a guy that the potential is there that he can definitely hit down the top 10, top 7 in his future. I think that if he fixes certain parts in his game, I think his skill level where it's at with certain improvements, he could be a problem. He could be a problem. He has good jiu-jitsu, good striking, good power, good Muay Thai. He has all the tools, right? He just has to improve in certain areas. And this guy could be a top 7 fighter, I think. When I look at Johnny Munoz, I don't see the same thing, right? I see a guy that is stuck in the past, one-dimensional, just wants to grapple, just wants to hold you down. Like, striking is very bad. Chin is very bad. Wrestlers have knocked him out. So now he's going to be fighting a Muay Thai guy that has jiu-jitsu that should be able to negate some of that. And I think on the feet, I think Santos is going to put a hurting on Munoz, man. And Munoz has shown that once he gets hurt, he covers up, right? So I'm going to go Daniel Santos here to get this win. I think this should be a more confident pick, but because of his style, it's that shoot box style, Wanderlei Silva, Shogun style, that because of that style, it's an in-your-face striking style. It's very aggressive, very dangerous, but it's a style that you can get hit too, right? So because of his style, it's hard to be really, really confident, but he definitely should win this fight.
Moving on to our main card, against 6 fights on the main card. Fight number 1, Abubakar Nurmagomedov versus Elizeu Zaleski. For Nurmagomedov, unanimous decision win over Gadzi Omargadziev back in October. Dagestani Sambo-style wrestler. He's trained with Khabib for a very long time. On the feet, he's patient, sharp jab. He's going to use level changes to his advantage. Some switch stance as well. He can land, some pretty decent takedowns, land some decent combinations as well. Seems like he has good natural punching power, good footwork, good movement as well. To the point of the takedowns, just 3 takedowns in 3 UFC fights, so you do want to see more there, but again, very reliant on that style to win him fights as a Dagestani Sambo style wrestler. For Elizeu Zaleski, he hasn't fought since October 2021. He beat Benoit Saint Denis at that time. Good movement, good well-timed kicks. He is capable of things like spinning kicks, flying knees, things like that. He will use them. Nasty calf kick as well. Very explosive. Can put combinations together. Good counter puncher as well. Look for him to fight from the outside. Only half a takedown per fight, so expect him to keep it on the feet. Just 62% takedown defense, which is very relevant for this fight. But he is a Brazilian black belt, who's crafty, who's able to work his way back up if he is taken down. Very interesting stylistic matchup here. I do expect Nurmagomedov to try to land those takedowns. I do expect Zaleski to be able to fight some of them off, because I don't think that Nurmagomedov has the strongest takedown ability the way that other Dagestanis do. I expect Zaleski also to use his grappling defensively to his advantage. Also expecting Zaleski to be a better striker in this fight. But I don't think by enough to make a difference to the outcome of the fight. From an outcome perspective, I'm expecting Nurmagomedov to land takedowns throughout the fight, because again, Zaleski just 62% takedown defense. And once it does get on the ground, I do expect him to keep it on the ground. I'm not really being threatened by that submission or the scrambling from Zaleski, and doing enough with that top control to pull rounds in his favor. Tough matchup for sure. Both guys are very solid, but I'm very mindful of Zaleski being 36 years old, having not competed in almost 2 years, probably just over a year and a half at this point. Still a tough matchup nonetheless, but stylistically, I like Nurmagomedov on the scorecard on this one. Unanimous wouldn't surprise me at all, and all 3 rounds wouldn't surprise me either, despite how tough I'm anticipating this fight being. So I'm going with Abubakar Nurmagomedov to get it done. Really a stylistic matchup more than anything.
Yeah, some contention here, man. I'm going against you, man. I'm going with Dos Santos in this spot. I like Nurmagomedov as far as he's going to be prepared, man. Those guys with Khabib, they come ready. They come cardio ready. They're ready for every situation in these fights. But in this fight, Nurmagomedov does not have the best top control. If he does get a takedown, he's gonna have a hard time staying on top, right, for 3 rounds. And on the feet, Dos Santos is dangerous. This guy, I feel, can just knock him out in any round at any point. He can land that right hook, and that's the beginning of the end. So I'm gonna go with Dos Santos here. I think that on the feet, he has such a big advantage. On the mat, Nurmagomedov doesn't have the best takedowns. He should be able to get a takedown or two in this fight. But I think at some point, takedowns are going to be really hard here. Dos Santos is I believe he's a black belt as well, so he does have the jiu-jitsu. But I just think on the feet, man, it's one guy's really dangerous, the other guy's kind of pitter-pattering. So I'm going to go with the dangerous guy here in Dos Santos.
Second fight, Karine Silva versus Ketlen Souza. Karine Silva, submission victory over Poliana Botelho in her June debut last year. She's on a 6-fight winning streak now, 100% finish rate amongst her 15 wins, 8 TKOs, 7 submissions. Striking is pretty solid, good activity, good diversity. She fights at range. She can also be explosive. She has that power again, more than half of her wins via KO, TKO. Pretty long jab. She's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage in this one that she will take advantage of. Loves that overhand straight punch as well. And she's also a pretty strong grappler. She's good at finding those submission attempts. Again, we have to allude to 7 of her 15 victories being by way of submission. So pretty strong, pretty good looking prospect going up against a UFC newcomer, coming from Invicta, flyweight title holder, Ketlen Souza on a 5-fight winning streak. So she may be a prospect in her own right. She last competed in January. 8 of her 13 wins are via KO TKO, and that's the first thing that you want to note. She fights with forward pressure. She fights with a kick-heavy approach. Has a bit of that sort of Jessica Andrade type of forward pressure to her as a fighter who will be, typically shorter in this weight class. Big looping overhand, big explosiveness, not really the best at setting things up. Kind of just goes for it. She is introduced as a BJJ fighter, so the grappling is definitely there. I mean, she is Brazilian, so that's not surprising. But just 1 submission victory to her name. And she's not a fighter that I've seen actively try to take the fight to the mat. I do think Karine Silva is the better talent here, better overall striking, more consistent activity. I feel like she's going to have more of a game plan with her striking. I think Souza is a bit reliant on that big shot, that explosiveness, whereas I think, Karine Silva can match that level of danger, but also be the more effective MMA grappler. Again, be the cleaner striker, also land the takedown if she needs it, because again, I don't really see Souza going for it. I'm not all the way sold on Souza. I think outside of a puncher's chance, I think that Karine Silva should get it done. So Karine Silva is going to be my pick for this one.
Yeah, Ketlen Souza wants to come in with that dog mentality. She wants to dog out these fighters. I think there's many fighters she can beat with that dog style, but I think she's fighting a bigger dog here in Karine Silva. Karine Silva's nasty, has power, can hurt you on the feet, and the big advantage is that grappling, right? So I'm Karine Silva all day here, man. I'm not sure how Souza wins this fight. I don't think she has the power to knock out Silva, and I just believe that Silva would be the one to hurt her. But more likely, Silva's going to get this to the mat, use that wrestling. I don't think Souza can stop the takedowns. The way she stands when she's striking, takedowns are going to be there. So I'm pretty confident in this spot here for Karine Silva. Women's MMA, so you got to be skeptical as far as confidence, but this is a pretty clear win here, I think, for Karine Silva.
The third fight of the main card, Tim Elliott versus Victor Altamirano, flyweight fight here. Tim Elliott beat Tagir Ulanbekov 15 months ago. super awkward, super unorthodox in his stand-up, a lot of movement, a lot of fakes, a lot of level changes. He's going to keep putting that pressure on you, even if you are hitting him. Has that relentless style where he's going to be looking for the takedown. He lands almost 4 of them per fight. Relentless on top, good chain wrestling, has good grappling as well. Tough matchup for anyone, regardless, right? Very tough, very relentless, great cardio, keeps going, very, very committed to his game plan. Victor Altamirano's on a 2-fight winning streak. He beat Vinicius Salvador back in March. He's a southpaw. He is introduced as a striker. We are going to see a lot of kicks from him, a lot of combinations from him as well. I wouldn't say his technique is the cleanest, but he does go at a high pace. He does have high activity involved in his game. We see the significant strikes landed per minute there to prove that. Has a bit of that awkward style in his own right. He is hittable. He has been dropped, but he's tough. He has a good come from behind victory to his resume 2 fights ago. He was able to stay out of danger against an explosive striker in his last fight. But also getting hit never really deters him from trying to implement his style. And he also has the takedowns, despite being introduced as a striker. 2.5 takedowns per fight, 3 takedowns landed in his last fight. It is definitely something that he could make part of his game. I'll keep the prediction part of it pretty short. I like Tim Elliott here, just based off of experience, sort of more than anything. I think they have very similar styles, both tough, both cardio machines, both can and will land takedowns on each other, both agile enough to make their way back up if they are taken down. But I think experience and strength of schedule is on Tim Elliott's side here. I think he's going to bring more to the table, especially with those takedowns. I do expect the fight to be back and forth, maybe a split decision type of fight. But I'm not. Altamirano's doing well, getting wins, but I'm not all the way sold on him in terms of being able to confidently win a fight. Tim Elliott, it's not like I can say the same thing. I mean, you always got to be weary of any fighter with double-digit losses. But when Tim Elliott's on, he's on. And it's going to depend on which version of Tim Elliott we see. I think this is a winnable fight for him. And like I said, a split decision type of fight wouldn't surprise me. But ultimately, I see Tim Elliott getting his hand raised by the end of this fight.
Yeah, the first thing we gotta ask ourselves, man. In my opinion, not ask, but in my opinion, I'll make a statement. I think Victor Altamirano. I don't think he's UFC level. I really don't. He's pretty rudimentary in every area. His striking is a bunch of pitter patter. For him to win this fight, he's gonna need to do that pitter patter punching style, and he's gonna need an accumulation of punches to get some type of stoppage from the referee, because that's the only way I see him getting the finish here. I don't see power on his end. Elliott is he throws 1 or 2s, that's it. He doesn't throw many shots. He doesn't really throw the combos like Altamirano, but he does have a big wrestling advantage in this fight. He has a big jiu-jitsu advantage as well. He has a big experience advantage as well. And on the feet, his movement is really, really tricky, really hard to deal with. And I think a fighter like Altamirano, who's really stiff and kind of like he's not good, right? So I can see a fighter like Elliott kind of doing a lot of footwork, getting the spots he wants to get in, landing the big shots, getting a takedown, staying on top, maybe get some back control. I got to go with Tim Elliott here. The only concern is his age. So you got to be skeptical as far as a confidence, because he is an old guy. He's 36, but I think a fighter like Altamirano who's 32, I don't see how Altamirano gets this done outside of Elliott getting injured in this fight, because Altamirano needs to get an accumulation of punches to get the finish. He hasn't shown me that he has that one-shot kill. So if he does hurt Elliott, I can see Elliott getting a takedown, pretty much negating all of that. So I got to go with Elliott, safer pick, better fighter. I think he gets the win.
Fight number 4 of the main card, Jim Miller versus Jared Gordon. Jim Miller, unanimous decision loss to Alexander Hernandez. That was back in February. Good wrestling, good grappling. Those are going to be his primary ways to win a fight. Serviceable stand-up at best, I'd say. Willing to engage. His striking is looking cleaner over his past few fights. His movement, his footwork looks better. He's going to use that calf kick regularly. The left straight, probably his best punch, and we still have to respect his power. Not afraid to engage. Got to respect that finishing ability. Not afraid to really mix it up with his opponents and sort of test the toughness. 1.6 takedowns per fight, 43% accuracy. Again, very capable on the ground, good grappling, 35 pro wins, 19 of them are via submission, including his last win. Not a relentless wrestler by any means, though. He's someone who is very content with striking. And then Jared Gordon, on the other hand, he last fought in April against Bobby Green. That was, of course, that no contest due to the accidental clash of heads. In terms of what actually happened in that fight, Bobby Green essentially stopped him because of that clash ahead. But nonetheless, Jared Gordon, patient, controlled style of stand-up. Not really the quickest, not really the best movement, but the stand-up is decent. It's consistent. He's best when he's coming forward. The striking defense is pretty consistent as well. Picks his shots pretty well. Got to respect the ground game too. 2 takedowns a fight, BJJ brown belt. He is good at finding those takedowns when he goes for it. He has pretty decent top control. Takedown defense, not the best, which could be very relevant for this fight. I'm looking at a close fight. I'm anticipating a close fight here. I'm anticipating a fight where neither guy is really spectacular in any one area. I think they both do a bit of everything in terms of their approaches to fights. That said, I think Jared Gordon just a little bit better in a few key areas. Just 5 years younger, but much less fights than Jim Miller, much less mileage on the body, but still 25 professional fights to a point where we can't say he's inexperienced by any means. He should be, Jared Gordon I'm talking about, should be the more durable of the two fighters. I think his stand-up is better. I think it's more consistent, more reliable. He strikes at a higher pace. Of course, he's going to score more points on the feet. Statistically lands more takedowns. Statistically better takedown defense than Jim Miller. How relevant are those things? Maybe not too relevant, but got to highlight that stat. I am seeing one of those back and forth types of fights, but ultimately, again, Jared Gordon, I think, is slightly ahead in key areas that will allow him to be slightly ahead in each round. Again, this is one of those fights, very competitive, but unanimous decision would not surprise me. I am going to go with Jared Gordon. Not going to place a bet on this one, but I do think Jared Gordon gets it done.
Yeah, you got to look at Jared Gordon, man. You said a big word, consistent, man. Throughout 3 rounds, he's a consistent fighter, has decent cardio, good wrestling, pretty good boxing. He just has to be careful because Miller can land that straight, can land that hook. He definitely has that right hook, that right straight, that he's able to knock guys down, get a club and sub type of situation. He has really good grappling, really good submissions. So a guy like Gordon, who has been hurt, who has been dropped, Miller, who's able to find those shots with his skills. You got to be careful as far as confidence on the Gordon side. But I am on the Gordon side, being the more consistent guy, the much younger fighter. He got robbed in his last fight. Or was it the last fight against Paddy Pimblett?
2 fights
he
ago.
won that fight. Oh, 2 fights ago. He got robbed in that fight. And I think this is a fight that he could win, man. Miller's getting old. I think Gordon stays around for the second round. Miller's cardio looked really bad in his last fight. So that could be an area. Gordon has good cardio. So I'm going to go with Jared Gordon surviving that first round. It's not like Miller's a Chuck Liddell or a Alex Pereira type guy that's going to finish you in that first round. I think if Gordon survives that round, gets some clinching going, tires out Miller, gets some grappling going in that round. I see a second round being a lot easier. Miller's going to slow down. He's going to tire out. I got to go with Jared Gordon in that spot, getting the second and third round.
Let's talk co-main event of the evening. In that case, we're talking Alex Caceres versus Daniel Pineda. Featherweight co-main event here. Alex Caceres beat Julian Erosa in December. Lengthy southpaw, experienced fighter, good movement. He's going to stay patient. We know he's definitely improved his striking IQ as his career has progressed. Pretty diverse striker. He's always been that. Effective kicks to stay at range. He's always been that as well. Got to respect his takedown accuracy, 70%. When he does go for them, he does get them, but doesn't really land them too often, not really an active part of his game. He can sneak in that submission as well. He has a number of professional wins via submission, so you do have to be careful if you engage with him in any kind of grappling situation. But again, like I said, expect him to keep the fight standing, expect him to use his movement, expect him to pick his shots and sort of try to win fights with his stand-up. Daniel Pineda beat Tucker Lutz back in March. Comfortable, clean stand-up, good combinations, decent movement. Look for him to control center, look for him to come forward. Good jab usage, good calf kick usage as well, especially good calf kick usage. Good punch IQ, knows what to throw, good counter striker, and got to respect the wrestling. 1.5 takedowns per. Wrestling is his background. Good top control. And can't forget that 19 of his 28 wins are via submission, including his last fight. So very good at finding that submission in his own right. I think that Pineda is the more dangerous striker here. I think that Pineda has the wrestling advantage, probably has the grappling advantage as well. What makes this fight really hard to predict for me is that Caceres is quicker, is trickier with the striking. But Pineda's a vet, right? Both of these guys are vets, and I say that to say that I think they'll both be prepared for their respective opponent's style. So to me, it comes down to how the skill sets match up analytically on paper. And, I favor Pineda's skill set for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. Again, Sarah's trickier with the striking, but Pineda more dangerous with the striking. Pineda, actively including wrestling in his stylistic approach to fights. And again, probably having that grappling advantage to a point at least where Caceres won't catch him by surprise, and he may catch Caceres by surprise. So, of course, want to be careful with fights where both guys have double-digit losses. It could really just be about who's hotter that day, who shows up more on that given night of the fight. But for a match with two veterans, I'm looking at this fight more so based on analytically, and analytically, I'm liking Daniel Pineda's style for this fight more than I'm liking Alex Caceres' style. So I'm gonna go Daniel Pineda. I think he's going to get the job done as an underdog again, because we know he was an underdog in his last fight and pulled it out. I think he's going to be able to do the same thing for this fight versus Alex Caceres.
Yeah, Caceres, Bruce Leroy, man. There's a lot of things you gotta like. He's the favorite in this fight. But in this fight, you gotta think he's gonna have to kind of move around all fight. He's gonna have to move around, and if the fight gets a lot of grappling going and he gets tired of it in that first round, he's gonna have to move around for the rest of the fight, and that could really affect his cardio. Daniel Pineda has probably top 10 kicks in the UFC, calf kicks. His calf kicks are really, really good, man. And he throws them heavy power. And I don't think 88%. Wow. Hey, Harris, that's real for this fight?
2,000 predictions.
Wow.
That's, very,
Wow.
very wow.
So yeah, I definitely see, I see why people might be on Bruce Leroy, which he's the favorite, so he should win the fight technically, right? But this is a fight that he's gonna have to pretty much be on his bicycle for 3 rounds, move around all around, kind of like Sugar Ray Leonard versus Marvin Hagler. He's gonna have to do that style for 3 rounds, and he can't get hurt because Pineda is gonna be able to throw those leg kicks, and that's gonna be a focal point. He's gonna go for takedowns like he did against Tucker Lutz, who is a much better wrestler than Caceres. Caceres doesn't have takedown defense. It's non-existent. And one thing I like about Pineda is he's been doing jiu-jitsu matches. He's been doing grappling tournaments or grappling matches. And that tells me that he's definitely trying to fix a hole in his game. It might be not on his record, but yeah, it's there actually. Grant Dawson. So he had a draw with Grant Dawson, a much bigger guy. Dabby Ramos, a high-level black belt Brazilian. Andre Fili, okay, that was a fight. But him having these jiu-jitsu matches tells me he's taking things a bit more different. We know that he has a big win against go on Pineda's record here. I want you guys to see this win he has that was overturned. One sec. Movlead. Okay, right there. Movlead Keubulaev. Okay, he's in the Khabib camp. He's one of those Dagestan guys in Russia. But this guy probably has the best striking. He has flying knee knockouts. If you don't know about this guy, go right now, pull up his highlights. You're going to be surprised. He has that wrestling style like Makhachev, Khabib, but he's probably the best striker in that. He's in the PFL. And in this fight, he got knocked out by Pineda. Now, Pineda was supposedly on steroids, so the fight was overturned, and that's what happened there. But regardless if you're on steroids or not, like I know steroids definitely help you as far as training goes. I'm not saying steroids does not matter, but he still knocked out Movlead. Movlead is undefeated, hasn't lost aside from that fight because that fight was taken away because of the steroids. So it's kind of like knocking out Khabib. That's how dominant Movlead has been. And he has that knockout, but again, the fight was overturned. I don't think Bruce Leroy's going to be able to be on his bike for 3 rounds. I think the leg kick's going to have a toll on Leroy. I see Pineda also going towards that wrestling. I think he's going to use that grappling, that jiu-jitsu. I think he might smother Caceres. Caceres has no takedown defense. I got to go with the underdog in this spot here. I think there's a lot of value in this spot based on what's on paper. Leroy has the footwork, the movement, the length, but almost everything else, and Leroy has the striking, but almost everything else Pineda has. And Pineda has those leg kicks that are going to be very important. So I'm going to go Daniel Pineda here to get this win here.
All right, let's talk main event. In that case, we are looking at Kai Kara-France versus Amir Albazi. High stakes flyweight fight here. We know that Kara-France lost to Brandon Moreno, the champ, July of last year. Active movement on the feet, or that was a championship fight, I should say. Active movement on the feet, a lot of in and out movement, a lot of fakes, a lot of level changes, really good striker. City kickboxing product, so no surprise there. We know that's Adesanya, Volkanovski, those guys. Has that tendency to swing big, miss big, but especially lately, his precision, his punch IQ, his decision making, his strategy, these are things that have been a lot better. He is a lot more focused, a lot more methodical. He's clearly raised the level of his game over his last few fights leading up to that title opportunity. Good power, 11 of his 24 wins via KO, TKO. Don't really expect him to land takedowns, but he has a exceptional takedown defense, which I will bring up a bit later. Amir Albazi, 5-fight winning streak, beat Alessandro Costa back in December. Good boxing, good punching IQ. Has a good jab, has good combinations. He sets up his openings, good striking defense as well, good timing, good counter punching ability. You know, he can be a decent pressure striker when he chooses to do so. Of course, has that good ground game as well, good jiu-jitsu as well, not just a wrestler. 2.5 takedowns per fight, really good on the accuracy side of things. He's landed takedowns in all 4 of his UFC fights. So that is a consistent part of his approach. And I mean, like with any main event, you're looking at 2 high-class fighters, right? Anything can happen when you're looking at 2 high-class fighters, and that's going to make it a tough fight to predict. I think the key stat for this fight is Kai Kara-France's 87% takedown defense. Very hard to get him to the mat. You think about Kai Kara-France versus Askar Askarov. I think I had Askar Askarov in that fight. There's a similar path for Kai Kara-France here. You know, he did give up a few takedowns, but he never really gave up top control for too long outside of that first round. You know, he was able to be the better, more dynamic striker against a fighter whose movement isn't as good as his. I can see a similar type of thing happening for this fight. Now, we know that Amir Albazi has been, you know, super hungry for a top 10 fighter. You know, leading up to his last win versus Alessandro Costa, he had some original opponents. I think Brandon Royval and one more name that I'm forgetting right now, you know, that are those top 10 type of fighters that he's looking for. And he didn't get that in his last win. So, you know, he's going to come prepared for this one. This is a great opportunity for him to put himself maybe a fight or 2 away from a title shot, going up against a Kai Kara-France, a former title challenger, I should say. So you got to think he's going to be super hungry to perform. I've gone back and forth for this fight all week. You know, I definitely won't be betting it. My gut says Amir Albazi, but I think this is going to be a fight that a bit of tale of two stories, where I think that Albazi is going to look good early in the fight. I can see him taking the first 2 rounds, but I think the 5 rounds is going to favor Kai Kara-France being the better striker, being able to keep the fight on the feet, the exceptional takedown defense. I can see him stuffing those takedowns in rounds 3, rounds 4, rounds 5, and I can see him pulling out a decision as the fight goes on. Also, can't forget Kai Kara-France, still very much a crowd favorite. I know this is taking place in the Apex, but the UFC is a promotion at the end of the day, and you need exciting guys like Kai Kara-France. So even if it's a 50-50 fight, I can see judges leaning in favor of Kai Kara-France. So those are some X factors that I am thinking about. But like I said, tale of two stories. I think Albazi gets it done early, but then I think Kai Kara-France starts to pull away as this fight goes on. Like I said, though, very back and forth on this one. Do not bet it. Just enjoy it as a fan. Kai Kara-France will be my pick, though.
Yeah, this is one of those fights you definitely want to be careful with betting. Like Harris, I'd probably stay away because both guys have the ability to win this fight. So one mistake, one guy's going to capitalize. Albazi's a really smart fighter, good wrestling, good jiu-jitsu. His stand-up's improving. He does throw power. So you can definitely hurt him and then kind of jump on his back type of situation. France, though, well-rounded guy. He's dealt with wrestlers like Askarov, probably a better wrestler than Albazi, and he was able to do enough to keep it on the feet, and obviously he was able to dictate the striking. He's a really good striker, really good hands. Albazi at some points looks robotic. I think Albazi needs to get it done early. If not, I think I got to go with Kai Kara-France during this spot here. I think he's gonna be able to do enough to keep it on the feet, and every minute he's on the feet, he's just gonna win those minutes. And his taking him down is gonna be hard because he has that footwork. He moves around, like he doesn't stay there stationary. He's never stationary. He doesn't stand against the cage. So Albazi is gonna need to kind of get him in the open area. I gotta go with Kai Kara-France here, keeping it on the feet and just outclassing him with the striking.
All right, let's take it to Vegas. At that point, let's talk some underdogs. Let's talk some parlays. Let's start with our underdogs. So I will read them out as they currently stand. Philipe Lins is an underdog against Max Grishin. Damon Blackshear is an underdog. Jinh Frey is an underdog. Johnny Munoz Jr., Andrei Arlovski, Muin Gafurov, the Zaleski Dos Santos versus Nurmagomedov fight. That fight is a pick'em, so we will consider either of those guys to be underdogs. Muhammad Naimov is an underdog. Ketlen Souza, Victor Altamirano, Jim Miller, Daniel Pineda, and Amir Albazi versus Kai Kara-France is a pick'em as it stands right now. So again, either of those will be considered underdogs.
I actually have two underdogs, but I'm not gonna give two for the channel. Okay, for the channel, I'm gonna go with Muin Gafurov.
Okay, you wanted to provide that second one as well, not unofficially.
Yeah. Okay, this is just for people that listened all the way through. I'm gonna throw this in there for those guys that listened all the way through. I'm gonna throw them. This is a value. I like Elizeu, Zaleski.
Cool. My underdog pick is actually going to be the same as your official channel pick, Muin Gafurov. I also really like his spot there versus John Castañeda. And in terms of parlay picks, favorite picks that you're considering putting together on a ticket, who are you looking at?
Okay, so I'm looking at Jamie Mullarkey, man. Fighting that Taekwondo guy, man. You know how I feel about Taekwondo and karate and MMA. But I'm gonna go with Jamie Mullarkey in that spot. Daniel Santos. And I'm gonna close it out with Karine Silva.
All right, so for my picks, and this is probably the first time that this has happened in boxing MMA picks history, where we have both the same underdog and the same parlay. That is the exact same parlay
You're
that I put
copying me, man.
together.
You're copying me, Harris. I'm
That is the
joking.
exact same parlay I put together myself. Daniel Santos, Jamie Mullarkey, Karine Silva, 3 fights at a 2.60. $100 is going to get you $260 in total return. For our bigger bettors, $250 is going to get you a total return of $652. Again, first time that's ever happened in boxing MMA picks history. So let's see how that one turns out. But let's officially sign off on that note. Again, if you have not subscribed to the channel here at Boxing MMA Picks, please make sure you do so. We would definitely appreciate that. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up on this video. And most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. How do you feel about our picks? What are your parlay picks that you're looking at? What props, what decisions, what knockouts, what submissions? Let's have all those conversations in the comments, where we're more than happy to provide additional insights, additional analysis, additional sort of feedback to help you guys win as much money as possible. But let's officially sign off. On that note, this has been UFC Fight Night, Kai Kara-France versus Amir Albazi. Full card prediction video presented by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zan, I go by Harris, and in our usual fashion, let's get this money.
Let's get it.